Good evening, everyone. This is Tom O'Leary from City Hall, live on Facebook, just as the storm hit town. So we'll knock on wood and hope we can get through the next 25 minutes as what looks like a pretty powerful storm is going to come through our community. Want to talk about a few things tonight, and then hope we have some questions on the topic or subject of community. I wanted to point out, and there are flyers around, and you can see this information as well at our on the internet at our website. But the 9th of June will be the Community Cleanup Day, and it's changed a little bit this year. We're going to focus on tire recycling in the hopes of reducing the amount of mosquito larvae in the community, and we are going to really only operate with large dumpsters on Liberty Street, really between Domino's and H&R Block, the city parking lot where we've had the last couple of years dumpsters spotted. And so we're going to be focusing on that. There will be no curbside recycling. That's probably the biggest change from previous years, and we thought when we evaluated how things went last year and started to make changes in how we were going to approach this year, we really decided to move away from the curbside because of how it continued to dominate for up to 6 weeks our service department's time and put them behind on street patching, repair, maintenance jobs in our city utilities, and necessary work that needs to be performed in the park during the same part of the calendar that the cleanup had been traditionally held. So that's one item. Again, check our website, but it will be June 9th, and we're going to focus on we'll accept everything essentially but appliances and beds and large pieces of furniture, but we'll take a lot of miscellaneous refuge and things that have piled up around folks' home, as well as the tires. So that will be on the 9th. The drop-off center is, as I said before, on Liberty Street across from City Hall in that parking lot. So that's something that we were talking before we went on air. That's just 2 weeks away, so I think it will be upon us in City Hall before we know it, but I do believe that gives folks plenty of time to do a little planning, and we wanted to do this in a weekend when Taylor Road was not open, so we can focus just on really stuff that's piled up in the garbage of the back room and extra tires that are laying around or stacked on people's properties. So I think that's that's an important thing to mention. A couple of other schedule or calendar items. We hope to have the pool and splash park. Both will open on June 2nd. Really no changes in fees. Certainly out at the splash park there will continue with the free access and no admission charge, and the various charges at the swimming pool are have been in force or been in place for really the last 4 or 5 years, and so we intend to try to keep those rates as flat as possible. And right now is the time, really the best time, in order to get a summer pass or season pass. So I would encourage you to get a hold of the YMCA. We'll be managing the pools for the city again this year, and talk to them about the price and availability of season passes. Working, trying to get our bathroom open at the Amons shelter. We're beginning to get quite a pickup in those rentals, and I would say, quite honestly, that although it's not a major source of revenue, I know it's a major source of convenience for families in the community. You have a birthday party or a large family reunion, and not everyone has the ideal place for that. So our trio of the East Park cabin, the pavilion at the depot, and now another similar nice facility out at Amons Reservoir give us a set of covered shelters, and really have seen the rental of those beginning to pick up. anyone wanting to rent any of those facilities, or simply the shelter houses that we have, it's the 419-468-1857 number, and somebody answering the phone there will work with you and book that for you if we haven't already had that date occupied or reserved. Tomorrow, I guess I'll stay on calendar here, folks. Tomorrow is a big day in the development of the Brant Road development area, the 598 Brant Road corner up where the sleep inn is. Tomorrow will be the groundbreaking on the second investment in that development area, and looking forward to have a nice soft soil now after the storm comes through, but hopefully good weather to recognize the long-awaited the beginning of the construction of the long-awaited Valero project. So that will take place at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it's I think the way we look at it at City Hall is it's an important second step. And as the city puts in the necessary inventory of infrastructure, meaning sewer, water, storm water, and roadway, I think we'll begin to see the momentum pick up. And access off of 598 is going to be a city's determination now and no longer ODOT. And so I think that gives us a real opportunity to be in charge of our own fate. And we can speak without having to have an ODOT as an intermediary when it comes to access points and turn lanes and traffic signals and those things that often confound development as a part of a highway goes from a rural use into a more commercial use. So again, it'd be an exciting project. The city has made a decision. Council, I think, has been wise in supporting that, certainly, of developing this 598 area. And tomorrow will be the beginning of the building of the convenience store. And then on the 30th of May, we'll have the bid opening for the infrastructure that the city is going to put in to really get this project in the ground and open for business.
First, we just have a comment from Dawn. She said, looks like the third Friday last week was a hit. Hope to see more events like this around town.
Yeah, I think I would add to that comment, although I was out of town. I did talk with the chamber today, and their membership director, or sort of assistant to Joe Kleinite up there, Miranda Jones, said that the crowd and the people's response exceeded all expectations, and it's it's always wise when you open up with a local band and have live music, and I think that really caps off what I heard was an otherwise good meeting, or good gathering rather, not exactly a meeting. And also heard real positive things about the number of vendors and the activity at the farmers market. So those are, I think, two reports that I would echo Dawn's comments about her impression of the third Friday and its success.
Now we have a question from Kim. Can you have our police patrol Hyde Park more during the hours when they're releasing school? A lot of fights out there.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed, Kim, I appreciate that. And wasn't aware of the fights, but what I have noticed cruisers down there at about that same time the past several weeks, and quite honestly, I thought that was a response to some calls the police department had on speed in the park. So there is for folks who haven't been in the park when school releases, there's a combination of pedestrians and teen motorists that really make for some close calls, and I think that's probably why the police are down there. So as far as the fighting, it's the first I've heard of that, but excuse me. Excuse me. Oh golly, cut that out, would you, Mr. Stone? Huh? But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that, and I expect the PD to be down there to monitor that activity, and I'll mention to the chief that we've got some concerns about fighting, those kinds of things.
That's all the questions we have for right now.
Let me hit up one or two more items, and then we'll wait for another question or two, and then we'll, kind of say goodnight for the evening. I mentioned, really probably the last couple of times we talked about our ongoing efforts to secure some funding, federal funding through ODOT to affect the planning, the engineering, if you will, and then the construction of a third lane widening from basically Arby's out to Route 30. And those applications have been made, and the presentations in Columbus have happened, and we're really hoping to hear back. I want to mention that for two reasons. One, that we are pursuing some outside funding and trying to add to that, to the safety in that corridor by widening it. But also because if we aren't successful in securing that funding, I don't want people in the community to think that somehow is the end of the discussion or our efforts to put a traffic signal and improve that intersection out at Brant Road and 598. So we're hoping that the ODOT funding comes through and can accelerate when that can happen and make the burden on local gas taxpayers and licensed tax folks. But either way, we're going to continue to improve that safety in that corridor out there over the next several years. Tomorrow night, there are a couple of controversial things on the agenda, so if you want to hear or see local government in action, you may want to come up. There's some mundane things but there I know from some calls in earlier today, there'll be some people up with some questions on some development, and my thoughts are that I think it's a good thing when people come to council meetings, particularly when they have a specific issue. I think what's most frustrating is when after council has taken action on something, a lot of work's been done, then you begin to hear the criticism when there have been ample times at committee meetings or first and second readings often on legislation to have a voice, and you get the impression sometimes people wait and then raise their criticisms after things have been done rather than trying to get some input on it. So I would encourage people, if they can tomorrow night, to be at the council meeting and with no other questions?
We do have an observation from Quentin.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed more feral cats than normal, like in the Geyers parking lot. What should we do as a community to curb this trend?
Well, I think the issue of feral cats has begun to be discussed by council, and they're really at least two primary schools of thought on that. One is that you capture and destroy those animals, euthanize them, and the other is to shelter the animals and feed the animals. So at this point, really, there's been no direction. I guess I'd have to agree with Quentin in the sense that I've noticed some areas there are a few more stray cats, and we are hearing about that problem both through social media, and we're also seeing it in terms of incoming calls about the need to do something. So it's a if it's treated like we did the rodents, the raccoons, we were paying $25 to $40 per animal captured. So if council decides that that's something they want to do, is pay a critter catcher, a varmint collector, there's certainly someone in town who will capture and cage the animals, and at that point we'll have to decide exactly what course to take, whether to shelter them or to euthanize them. So anyways, we'll end on feral cats. It's a serious issue, particularly when it's next door in your neighborhood, and I can only say that council has begun to look at that And it is the kind of topic I was just talking about, that if you have a concern or opinion, you really need to bring that, voice that at the council meeting, and then see how local officials handle it on what really is a tough, almost no-win situation that you bring up. So, with that, I guess I'll say goodnight and thank everyone for listening. Share the information, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll see some of you folks tomorrow night at City Council. Good night.